It is Monday, the 5th of January 2026. And is Iran going to see its dictatorship fall today, tomorrow, this week, this month, this year? Well, if you've been watching my videos in the last days and weeks, especially, but even before that, you know my take on this is that you need to see millions of people, not tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands or even a million. You need 3 to 5 million people all at once rushing against the system to overthrow the institutions and the IRGC and all of its armed apparati across their country in order for the actual people to actually do what's necessary to take over the job. This piecemeal stuff isn't going to work. Taking things day by day with breaks for tea or naps or night sleeps, that's not going to work, folks. I'm sorry. It's just not. And I know you've probably seen the reports that Khamenei is planning to flee Iran if his security deserts him or if they fail to quash the protests. I mean, you kind of have to be a little bit naive to not understand that that is a good bit of propaganda and misinformation on the parties by the parties that want to out him. Obviously, like, why would the Sunday Times post a leaked intelligence report that says that he plans to flee if those are the conditions? You know, if his security guys don't protect him, if they desert him, or if they can't quash the rebellion or whatever, the protests. Like, obviously, any dictator facing that situation is usually going to plan to leave unless they really either don't have a survival instinct and don't care to die, or they're just magnificently stupid. Maduro, you could say, well, Maduro stuck it out until he got captured. Maduro was given many warnings, and he honestly is magnificently stupid, which is why he thought he could stick it out. He never thought that the U.S. would just come and nab him. The U.S. proved them wrong. Khamenei is 86. Frail, sick, you can argue whatever you want. But as much as he's a jihadi idiot, he himself doesn't want to die. He wants to send everybody else to die for him. Although he preaches that he wants to die, obviously. You know, he preaches that he would love nothing more than to be a shaheed. Not so much Arab dictators and Muslim dictators in general. He's not Arab yet, but he's an Arabized, if you will. But even that, not really. But, you know, the Shia Muslim that he is does not really want to be hanged by his boots. He would love nothing more than to rule Iran for the rest of his days. And if that's not available, I'm sure he'd like to go retire in some country that accepts him, whether it be Russia or some other place. By the way, keep in mind, Qatar makes something like 90% of their revenue from oil and gas on an island they share with Iran. So even though Iran and the U.S. are loggerheads much of the time, you know, specifically the Iranian regime, Qatar and Iran kind of get along swimmingly, despite the fact that the U.S. has a massive military base there and a lot of interests in Qatar. I would not be surprised if he ends up there. It would be unusual, yes, but it wouldn't be impossible to imagine. After all, Hamas has their political people based in Qatar, as well as in Turkey. And both of those countries are supposedly allies of the U.S. So is it really that hard to imagine that he would escape through Qatar or Turkey or some other place that is even a U.S. ally in some way? It's not that unimaginable. And could he escape to Russia? Yeah, sure, he could. But it's certainly a very strange thing. Like, you don't put out plans to announce to your enemies, and even to your loyalist supporters, that you plan to flee if the situation gets worse. That's just, kind of nonsense. That if anything was ginned up to get his opponents kind of excited about the prospects of him being ousted, which he very well still may be ousted, yeah? But so far, we have not seen the kind of momentum from these protests. And yesterday, despite everything we see in the media and the people getting their hands on fully automatic weapons somehow, we're seeing a little bit more violence from the people against the IRGC, and we're not yet seeing massive deaths of regular civilians because the government has yet to kind of blast them away. But we're seeing far less protests on Sunday than we saw on Saturday. And the anti-government protests fell off significantly compared to like the pro-government demonstrators, which, by the way, there are pro-government demonstrators still happening, which I know sounds crazy, but yes, there are. The reason it sounds crazy is because if you're watching social media or other media, traditional media, you're seeing a very washed version of what's actually happening there. If you keep your eyes on the intel that's actually happening in Iran, you'll see statistically these numbers are just not adding up. And the anti-Ayatollah movement, sadly, is not gaining the kind of momentum. And forget about, see, this is what I said. This isn't about building momentum over time. This is about a short, very fast, very volatile, probably extremely violent blast of force by the people literally and physically overrunning the government institutions and the military of the IRGC and its ilk, right? If this becomes a sustained and prolonged, quote unquote, civil war, it's over. The people will not win. Right? They'll have to wait for the next opportunity, probably in the next 3 to 12 years, who knows? At some point, the government of Iran will fall, because that kind of dictatorship can only be sustained for so long, especially when its economy is completely collapsed and reduced to nothing. But for now, they remain in place, and unfortunately, the people of Iran have to continue living under the oppressive regime that rules over them since 47 years. It's terribly sad, and I wish that they would end it today. But that's something that they have to do. It doesn't matter how much America or Israel can help from the sky or from the ground or anything with drone strikes or missile strikes or spies or whatever, right? Special forces, anything. It doesn't matter. They're not, the US and Israel are not going to, do the job for the Iranian people, because it's just not something that is going to happen. This is something the Iranian people are going to have to do. And they know that. And God bless them. I hope they do it. Would love nothing more than to see Iran free. It would be amazing, and I hope it happens. Until then, reality is reality. I hate to be the guy that rains on the parade, but that's just how it is. So, until we meet again, bid you all peace and shalom.